Welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space. Our next 6 episodes are going to be related to We've Got Your 6, where we're going to share key components of wellness. We have emotional, social, intellectual, spiritual, occupational, and physical. Stay tuned to hear just a little bit about what we've got upcoming here at Hope and Healing and on the Wing Space podcast.
Hey mamas, whether you are preparing for or recovering from childbirth, this 6-week progressive series coming soon to Hope and Healing is for you. Join Carlin Davensizer this September for pelvic floor physical therapy classes, curated especially for our pre- and postpartum community members. If you experience pelvic floor symptoms, diastasis, or pelvic, hip, and back pain, the movements and exercises will be beneficial for your core and pelvic floor. To register or ask questions, email admin@hopehealingtherapy.com.
So welcome back, and glad to have you here for a short 6 series episode where we're going to look at components of wellness. As we at Hope and Healing celebrate our 6th anniversary, we want to share this idea that we've got your 6, we've got your back, and we want to share information about what's going to help you to be well. And we're going to start today with emotional wellness. It's a good place to start when you think about us as a mental health and wellness practice, a wellness center. And when we think about these components of wellness, I'm obviously using my own training, my own knowledge and experience and expertise, but I'm also going to be using resources from the National Institutes of Health as well as the University of New Hampshire. They have some really great information about these components of wellness. So today we're going to start with emotional wellness, which is this idea that we need to, and I don't often like to should, but that we should be kind to ourselves, and we recognize and experience a wide range of emotions, and we must be prepared for the life's stressors that come our way. Some we prepare for, some we're not prepared for, and learning how to adapt and change through difficult times, through stress, the good, bad, and the ugly. How we feel, how we experience our day can really impact the simple day-to-day things as well as the big stressors that we develop. So I really want to dive into a handful of components with regards to having a toolbox in order to manage your emotional wellness. The first thing that I want to tap into, which the National Institutes for Health really does a great job of exploring, is this idea of building resilience. And I've talked before on the podcast, but also to different leaders and different organizations about this idea of building resilience, because we're not born resilient. We have to learn and adapt, and whether we have fewer emotions or we just manage those negative experiences in a different way, I'm not really quite sure which one. Maybe it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But it's this idea that we can bounce back, that we can experience a difficult situation and we can bounce back. And you have probably heard stories of people that just have incredible resilience. They've been through, pardon the term, but they've been through hell and back, and they still seem to be coming out on top. So let's talk about resilience. This idea of being able to find healthy ways of coping and having resources available. I always talk with my clients when I'm doing therapy about this idea that we all have to have a toolbox of coping skills. Some of them we're going to use regularly, some of them we're going to hold for a rainy day, some of them we might not think we'll ever use, but at some point we will. We have to start somewhere. So let's start with this idea of developing healthy physical habits. Our body is a machine, and if we are not feeding and fueling, moving and resting the machine, then it's not going to carry us through to the things that we need. You probably have known of times when you are hangry, when you are so thirsty. Our bodies are not optimized when we are hungry and when we are thirsty. So we need to really look at how we are feeding and fueling, moving and resting our bodies to improve not only the physical wellness, but also our mental wellness, because those two things go hand in hand. And when one is not working, the other one is going to basically be skipping and having that phrase, a glitch in the matrix, right? And as we look at feeding and fueling and moving or resting, right? Those are 4 things I want you to just keep in mind. Feeding, fueling, moving, resting. That by nature includes that we're going to be active. By nature, that means we're going to be moving our bodies. And I would invite you to say that that means that we're also going to be outside. I have recently started, my dog loves to go for walks, but he's an older guy, and he's got really bad hips. And so he can't go far, but he really loves to go for a walk. When he sees me get my running belt that I put my phone in and reach for his leash, I mean, he looks like a little puppy. He's so excited. And so him and I have started walking in the mornings because it's hot. But there's also not a lot of traffic, not a lot going on outside that we can easily and safely walk. And it's really been amazing just getting out and getting sunshine and fresh air, moving my body first thing in the morning. It might not look like that for you, but how might you get outside? And you've heard me talk about this idea of habit stacking. So how can you move your body, get outside, get fresh air and sunshine all at the same time? Maybe it means you walk to the mailbox instead of pulling up with your car. You're outside, fresh air, sunshine, moving your body. It can be as simple as that. And when we think about moving our body and we think about feeding and fueling and resting it, we also have to consider, what are we doing for ourselves each day? How are we taking time to notice the good moments, to do something that we enjoy, to spark joy, to really kind of feel good? Sometimes that means saying no to other things so that we can say yes to the things that we enjoy. I'm sorry, I share a lot of personal experiences here, but it's what I come from. You know, I have recently decided to say no to staying up late so that I can say yes to getting up early and having some time in the morning when it's just me. At some point, I'm going to have a conversation about this idea of a morning routine, much more in depth, but finding time for yourself each day, even if it's only 5 minutes. Even if it just means taking your coffee out on the front porch, walking on the front lawn while your dog's having its morning sniff fest, right? Taking a few minutes for yourself. People who build resistance, they also look at problems from different angles. They might talk to other people in order to get different perspectives and to bounce ideas off of them. They also might consider how they might look at something or how they might approach something differently. This might mean that we have to learn from our mistakes. I think that it's really important to remember that in life, it's not the mistake that matters. It's what we do afterwards. How do we learn from the mistake so that, number one, we don't make it again, and number two, so that we're approaching situations differently with a clearer head and more equipped next time. Also, checking in with ourselves, checking in with how we're feeling, how we're thinking. Are we doing those things that we know are going to make us physically ready for the challenges of the day? And then being grateful for those things, practicing gratitude. This is a really important practice. I've got some previous episodes all about just practicing gratitude. And maybe it means we're going to write those things down. You're going to grab it's almost school time. Actually, once this episode is aired, kids are going to be back into school, and we've got old school supplies from last year that they're not using because everything has to be new. So maybe you grab an old composition book or a 3-ring spiral notebook and you just start writing down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. Make it simple. It doesn't have to be big things, but when we start to recognize the importance of the little things, That's what's really important. Just before we started, I pressed record on this episode. I thought I had finished my cold brew protein coffee for the morning, and I picked it up and there's still a little bit in here, and that was like a fun little thing for me to be grateful for because it was just a smidge left for me to enjoy. And when I finish recording, I get to have some too. Sometimes we also have to explore our beliefs about our meaning, our purpose in life, what guides us, what are the principles, what are the expectations that we've put on ourselves. Maybe having opportunities to talk to other people about those things are important. We're going to talk more in other episodes about social wellness and about spiritual wellness. But what leads us? What guides us? What are our beliefs? And how does our life reflect those beliefs that we have? And how can we tap into social connections and a community in order to surround ourselves with people that are positive and that are healthy and that we can ask for help from them when we need it? Sometimes we're not really aware of our experiences, and I've certainly had my husband say to me before, babe, you're really stressed. And maybe I don't feel that. Maybe I don't recognize that in myself, but it's important that other people can reflect that back and say, hey, this is what we're feeling from you. This is the vibe that we're getting. And so I can step back, I can assess, I can check in with myself, and then I can grab some of those tools out of my toolbox so that I can approach things a little bit differently to build resilience. The other thing that happens is that as we are going about our day and we're building resistance, right? This is like the preventative measure. We know that there's going to be times when stress comes our way. There's good stress, there's good things that happen, but it still causes stress on our body. There's bad stress. We can probably think of things in both of those categories, whether it's chronic, it just goes on and on and on, or it's acute, where it's like it comes and it goes. Either way, we know that stress is harmful to us if we're not managing it properly and we're not managing it in healthy ways. I can't stress this enough. Sleep. Get enough sleep. I've got multiple episodes on sleep, and some of you are going, yeah, I don't need sleep. Well, here's the deal. We need between 7 to 10 hours of sleep every day. You might be surviving on 4, but maybe you could thrive on 7. So go check some of those episodes about sleep that I've done before. I'm going to talk a little bit about it today, but not in great depth. Again, feeding, fueling, moving, resting, right? So when we're resting, our body is repairing, it's restoring, and it's regenerating and refreshing. And then we're going to move our body, because when we experience stress, it creates energy in our body. And when we exercise, it releases stress out of our body. So we want to move our body preventatively, but also if you're super stressed, if you're having an experience and you just kind of feel it in your body, instead of going home and pouring a glass of wine, go for a walk around the neighborhood first. You still might want that glass of wine or that cold beer afterwards, but my guess is that you're going to go for that walk and you're going to feel a release of that energy, and then you're not going to reach for that maybe not so healthy coping skill. I love a cold glass of wine, especially at the end of a week, but the reality is we don't want to fall into unhealthy habits. And reaching for alcohol when we're stressed can turn into a very unhealthy habit. When we're stressed, we need social supports. We need people we can talk to. We need people that we can run errands for us or pick up the kids for us or whatever it is that we might need to do because we're headed in different directions. Setting priorities. If we are anticipating a stress that's coming, as I'm recording this, it's mid-August, so we are gearing up for back to school. We can start to get into routines. We can get into those back to school habits, which is really great to plan and prepare. We can't always do that. If we have a sudden loss or a sudden stressor that comes our way, we can't always plan. So if we kind of know what our priorities are, then we're able to put those things in line. And maybe that means we say no to things. We say no to new tasks, no to new responsibilities, especially when we know there's a stressor coming. I was just having a conversation with someone yesterday about planning an opportunity to sit down as a group and talk with our new pastor, and we have to plan for back to school, right? So we're going to say no to doing that on the first day of school, but maybe we're going to look at it for the week after that. because we're going to set those priorities. In the back to school, those first day or two, that's the priority. I'm going to show compassion to myself when things are stressful. I'm going to give myself praise for the things that I've been able to accomplish. I'm going to be grateful for the things that I've been able to accomplish. And I'm going to take note of what I didn't get accomplished so that I can plan for that the next day. I'm not going to give myself a hard time. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But I'm going to say, okay, yay, kudos to me for getting this done. Now I need to work on these things tomorrow. I talked about feeding, fueling, moving, resting. So when we talk about moving and resting, I want you to think about scheduling those things. I want you to think about setting aside times when you're going to get those things done. Whether it's an exercise class, whether it's yoga, whether it's Tai Chi, whether it's meditation or prayer, I want you to put it in your calendar. I want you to plan for it. I want you to not delete it or erase it or just forget about it altogether. And part of having those social connections and bouncing off ideas off of other people also helps us to recognize when we might need help, when we might need to talk with a pastor or a mental health professional to be able to work through some of those more difficult emotions. And what's really important to consider is, what are the things that are causing you stress? Is it relationships? Is it work? Is it finances? Is it health, right? And we're going to talk about all those components of health or all those components of wellness in their own podcast. But really briefly, I just want to tap into this idea of financial wellness, because depending on what wellness wheel you're looking at, there might be some other components of wellness. And I think financial wellness is a really big one that isn't going to get its own episode, but I want to tap into it just briefly, because financial wellness is our ability to meet basic needs and to manage our money in both short and long-term time periods. And if we can't meet our own needs and we can't manage our money, then that's going to cause a huge amount of stress for us. So I want you to think about creating budgets, looking at opportunities for free resources online. What is your income? What are your expenses? Do those things match? Are you overspending? Are you living beyond your means? Because stress comes from a financial standpoint when we are living beyond our means. We're spending more money than what we're making. And that can be so detrimental to our health and wellness. And just considering, where can I pull back? Where can I make some cuts? Where can I adjust so that we can be successful from a health and wellness standpoint? A silly example is this cold brew coffee that I have right here. I could go to one of our coffee shops and I could grab one of these. It's going to cost me, probably $8 to $10. This costs me less than $5 because I buy the ingredients and I make it at home. Does it taste as good as it would if I got it from a coffee shop? Maybe not, but it tastes pretty good to me. I can cut that expense in half. This is my breakfast because it has my protein shake in it. It's also my coffee for the day. So kind of maximizing the financial component of that. Considering what your debt is, looking at ways to consolidate debt, looking at resources online that you can consider. There's lots of them out there, different standpoints, different philosophies, but consider how you can consolidate debt, use the most of your resources, and looking at how money might be driving some of that stress. Okay? 2 more that I want to touch on in this episode. The next one is sleep. Again, there's multiple episodes that I've recorded about sleep, but we know that if we are not sleeping, we are not feeling good. If we want to feel emotionally and physically well, we have to sleep. It is vital to our well-being. When we are tired, we can't think straight. When we are tired, we can't move our body. When we are tired, we don't make good food choices. When we are tired, we don't make good social emotional connections. It's just a recipe for disaster. And some people do really well surviving on less sleep. But I want you to think about thriving. So a couple of ways that we can do that. I'm just going to kind of go through these real quick. Again, there's more information out there, and you have to try these over a long period of time. You can't say, oh, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Well, did you do it for one day or did you do it for 1 week? Did you do it for 1 week or did you do it for 1 month? Because a lot of these habits are collective over time. They work better the longer you do them. So setting a bedtime, going to bed and getting up the same time every day, whether it's the weekend or whether it's the week. During the week, you want to go to bed and wake up so that you can help your body to understand the circadian rhythm, when we are waking, when we are rising, when we are falling asleep. We want to make sure our environment is dark, it's quiet, it's comfortable to the very best of your ability. Some of us don't have control over our environments, but to the best of our ability, we're going to make it dark and quiet and comfortable. When we move our body, feed, fuel, move, rest, when we move our body, it helps to release the energy that our body is holding, which means there's less energy to kind of buzz and hum when we're trying to go to sleep. So exercising daily is really important. And for some people, we need to exercise several hours before we want to go to sleep because we don't want to increase our cortisol and then we can't go to sleep. So whether it's a morning walk, run, bike, strength training, or whether it's like a midday or an afternoon, moving our bodies helps us sleep. If you start exercising regularly and you're still having trouble sleeping, I want you to reach out to me because I want to talk to you about that. Turning off screens 30 to 90 minutes before bed. You want to turn off your brain. Blue lights just stimulate your brain, so you want to turn them off, set them aside. Maybe you plug them in outside of your bedroom. You don't even bring them into your room. Finding something that's going to be relaxing. Take a warm bath. Sometimes showers are more stimulating than relaxing. Lay in bed, sit in a chair next to your bed and read, making sure that what you're consuming in that book isn't going to be hyping you up, but that it's going to be relaxing. Avoiding alcohol and big meals. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to have a nightcap, it'll help me go to sleep. I promise you that it's not. You might think it is, but you're probably, if I had to guess, able to fall asleep, but then you're waking up in the middle of the night, right? Because what's happened is the alcohol has spiked your blood sugar, and then when you wake up, it's because you're having a crash. Large meals do the same thing. Your body is working at digesting your food rather than creating melatonin to get you to sleep. Same goes for other stimulants such as nicotine and caffeine. Again, we could talk about this all day long, right? About how we can best maximize our body and maximize our life. Avoiding those things altogether would be my key for you, or at least, drugs and alcohol and nicotine. Caffeine, certainly a drug, the way that it impacts our body, but limiting those so that we can maximize our sleep. Not napping. And this is really hard, especially for people who have schedules that allow them to nap. If you are napping during the day, you're not sleeping at night. The hard part is I'm not sleeping at night, so I'm so tired during the day that I have to take a nap. So pushing through it and not napping so that you can maximize your sleep. Maybe that means you're not going to take a nap at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and you're going to go to bed at 8 or 8:30. Who said you can't go to bed early, right? When I was a kid, our bedtime was 9 o'clock. I would love for someone to tell me my bedtime is 9 o'clock now as an adult. Getting natural sunlight during the day, earlier in the day, can be really important to help maximize your circadian rhythm schedule. Because as the sun comes up, our body knows that we're supposed to wake, and as the sun goes down, it knows that we're supposed to go to sleep. Certainly, if you are having ongoing issues with sleep, you want to make sure that you have had a sleep study. Talk to a professional, because if you've gone years without adequate sleep, there might actually be something physiologically impacting your ability to go to sleep. And I would just ask you to consider what that might look like for you to go talk to a doctor about your sleep. So we have 3 more components of emotional wellness that I want to share with you today. The third of the 6, I know at the beginning of this podcast I said there were 4, but there's 6, is being mindful. And the concept of mindful is simple, yet it's really hard to put into practice. It's the idea of being completely aware of what's happening. And sometimes we are so rushed and hurried and harried that we just don't pay attention to things. I invite you to go back to season 1 and listen to an episode I did about mindfulness and the Hershey Kiss. And I've shared with you guys here on the podcast before a perfect example of not being mindful. We have a couple of different kinds of candies here in the office. And one day I walked out to the lobby and I grabbed, 3 or 4 Hershey Kisses, and I came back to my office and I sat down. A couple minutes went by and I thought, oh, I'd like to have one of those Hershey Kisses. And I looked down and they were gone. I had eaten those Hershey Kisses so mindlessly that I didn't even get to enjoy them. So being mindful is when we stop, we breathe, we give our lungs a chance to fill up with air, we give our bodies a chance to take in the sights and the sounds and the smells of what's happening in our space. A really great way to do this is to take a walk. And I want to even invite you to call that a stroll. No fitness watches, no AirPods or headphones. Just go for a walk and listen to bugs and birds and maybe a dog barking. And if you're in my neighborhood, you're going to hear my rooster crowing. And just listen to the sights and the sounds and look around at the amazing world that we live in. And also, when we talk about resilience, we talked about checking in with ourselves, and sometimes we have to check in with our body, being mindful. Is there something that hurts? Is there something that doesn't feel quite right? Is there something that needs a stretch? Do I need to do some stretching or some yoga? Do I need to sit down? Do I need to change my shoes? Is there something messing with my sock, right? Just being aware and being very mindful, and then engaging in those relaxation techniques that we know are so important. Progressive muscle relaxation, you can find videos of that on our YouTube as well as on our website. We invite you to use them. Guided imagery, you can find that on our website as we build up our resources as well. And we can't talk about emotional wellness without talking about the loss that happens in our life, because all of us experience loss. We experience death, we experience divorce, we experience people moving, we experience changes in jobs. We all experience opportunities to grieve. And I call them opportunities because we really do have to look at the silver lining, the rainbow after the storm. And I know it sounds cliche, but if you've been listening for a while, you know in December of 22, my dad unexpectedly passed away. Like literally, boom, gone. And as difficult as this season of our life has been, and learning to live this life without him, there's been a lot of silver linings. There's been a lot of rainbows and even double rainbows and vibrant rainbows that we've had an opportunity to experience. So I would just ask you to consider what opportunities you have, and coping well with those losses, not right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong, but coping well, whatever that looks like for you, is really important. Taking care of ourselves, which is all those things we've already talked about. Taking care of each other. The last component we're going to talk about is social connection, and that fits into all of these pieces. Finding professional help when we need it, understanding, again, there is no right or wrong. You do what you need to do for today that works for you. Maybe that thing doesn't work tomorrow, and that's okay. But knowing that with stress comes the opportunities for loss. And through all of this, through managing stress, through dealing with the stresses and the losses in life, it's really important for us to have social connections. It helps to provide almost a barrier. It helps to kind of a forge of protection, if you will, to protect our health and to strengthen and lengthen our life. There are lots of increasing research, according to NIH, about how our link to others impacts our health. Emotionally, physically, it impacts our health. We are relational beings. Human beings are relational beings, and we're intended to be connected. There's tons of studies about babies and orphanages in other countries, and gosh, some of those studies are really heartbreaking to think about, but we know that connection is so important. So I would encourage you to build strong relationships with the people around you, your partners, your spouses, your children, your parents, your siblings, neighbors, friends. And if you find that you struggle making those relationships, consider where professional support might help you with that, learning communication skills and practicing those skills. Sometimes we have to be mindful of our role in relationship difficulties. And sometimes when we are under stress and our resilience is weak, then we have a difficult time connecting with other people. So it all ties in together. If we're not feeding and fueling our body, if we're not moving and resting our body, then creating connections, sleeping well, handling stress are all going to be impacted. So I would just encourage you today to consider all of these things that we talked about related to emotional wellness are intertwined, and we're going to find how they're more further intertwined to the other components of wellness that we're going to talk about in the upcoming episodes. So I look forward to sharing more information with you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear feedback or comments. So feel free to shoot us a DM on our socials, and you can always email me, Jennifer@hopehealingtherapy.com. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope you have a great day.